government institution that uses the media to amplify issues of development for women. We noticed that there are a lot of advocacy issues around how women access development, how they're treated in the community, but it was not enough to advocate for that. We decided to set up a media platform where their voices would be heard, because while they are heard to a limited extent in the mainstream media, we wanted something exclusive where on a daily basis, 24/7, we focused on what issues are out there that they needed to hear from, issues that they needed to input into, have their voices heard on, and also to give a platform to those women who are experts and newsmakers that are not given a platform in the mainstream or traditional media to also shine and be heard from.
Right. What are some of those issues that we've been tackling as Amakhosikazi Media?
Our main focus has been the access to media platforms by women, and also female journalists and their ability to grow within the profession. That has been our main advocacy area, where we find that you'll find that in the media colleges there is a majority of female graduates, but when you go into the newsroom, you don't find as many women practicing. So our goal is to find out why and to inspire them to stay in the newsroom, because without these women, the stories that come out, they tend to be skewed or from a perspective of no experience. I'm not saying men cannot tell women's stories, but they don't have the lived experience. They do not understand the context from which a woman reporter, for example, would report from, as well as getting the nose for news from a woman's angle. So we're trying to keep women in the newsroom and inspire them to rise through the ranks, because even if you look at those women that are in the newsroom, very few of them are in the realms of leadership. So that has been our main focus, but also getting into other areas where we're saying, in as much as we are amplifying the voices of women, what else are we doing to make sure that we develop them? So we do host trainings. We've had trainings on business entrepreneurship. We've done a research on children and access to documentation. So we do partner, especially with organizations that have a passion and expertise in advocacy issues. We then offer our media platform or media expertise arm to those kind of initiatives.
Speaking of women being found in the newsroom and women taking leadership roles in the newsroom, if you look at newsrooms in Bulawayo, there are few women in the newsrooms, and there are few women who are editors. As a journalist, someone who've done it, someone as a founder of Amakhosikazi Media, what's your take on that? Where are we missing it?
Okay, so from the discussions that we've had with female journalists, just last week we had a female journalist network meeting with students in the media fraternity, just to find out what inspired them to get into the profession and if they know what's out there for them. We asked them what are the myths that they've heard. They talk about sexual harassment, a difficult working environment, difficult sources and work colleagues, and the remuneration that the pay does not equal the kind of work put in. So you find that a lot of female journalists shy away from active journalism because they feel that it does not meet their lifestyle. A lot of, Zimbabwe is still very patriarchal and cultural. A lot of women want to get married, and when they're in the home space, to want to go for a story that will probably take you the whole night away from home or days away from home might be difficult for a female journalist. At times when newsrooms do not have the resources and you have to share a car, maybe with a source that you do not know, that becomes difficult for some female practitioners. Also, they complain of the difficulty handling sources, because male sources have a different approach to male reporters as compared to female reporters, and this opens up the female reporters to a lot of inappropriate behavior from the men. So they end up running away from the field and going into safer spaces like communications, public relations. I know a lot of female journalists who, after graduating, went on to do an extra degree or a course or a master's just to divert from active journalism to get into something else more corporate, more safer than active news production. So I'm not sure where exactly we're missing it, but I feel like we can start with the working environment itself. If women felt safe in their workspaces, they felt safe with their colleagues, they felt protected even when around sources, that would be a great way to start.
But also on a line of journalism, working with young journalists, female journalists in particular, also looking at Bulawayo, do you think media is safe space for women?
I feel like media is already is not a safe space for any practicing person, given the laws that are there and the limitations in terms of resources and the working environment. So for female journalism, it's even worse, because when you're not financially stable, when the job doesn't pay you enough to be independent, you become vulnerable, and they become people who offer you things, or who will say, for you to get to a certain level, you have to do A, B, C, D. As we speak, there are students who are failing modules, who are failing degrees, who are failing attachment because they have not cowed down to a demand for something. And when you're a woman, it becomes even worse, because when a male counterpart looks at you, they see an easy target. And unfortunately, that's where we have to start. We have to start with a societal problem and then trickle it down to a professional problem. And our societal problem affects all women, and then we then have to focus on the problems that women journalists in particular face, and it's going to take time.
Earlier on, I was speaking to someone about these issues on students. There's a die for a mark, die for a wave, die for accommodation. This affects female students in particular. So what can be done in these institutions, like let's go back to laws and policies. Let's align these things. Those female journalists are very safe within the institution, within the workplace. Female journalists must be safe. What can be done in terms of engaging the government and also activism? What can be done?
Like I was saying, that it's a societal problem. We can put policies. Zimbabwe is the best policies in the world. I mean, of any African country.
Do they know their rights?
I believe not many do know their rights, and that's a huge gap. Students don't know their rights as students, but Zimbabweans don't know their rights as citizens. So it will be difficult for us to expect a student to know her rights when a general Zimbabwean doesn't know what their constitutional rights are. And even if they did know, their rights will not be accepted or recognized. So trickling it down to the students, it becomes even worse, because this is a young person who is still learning, who is still afraid to maybe assert themselves or speak up for themselves. In Zimbabwe, the culture of the lecturer is the leader, the student is the follower. Many students are afraid to speak to their lecturers and argue with them. They are afraid to tell the lecturer, no, you are wrong. Things are not this way. What more if that lecturer has your marks in their hands, or they have something that could jeopardize your future? A lot of girls will just be quiet. And confidence is not a natural thing. You have to inculcate it in young people. So unfortunately, as parents, we fail our children by not instilling in them a sense of confidence, a sense of the rights that you're talking about. Letting them know that you need to speak out, you need to fight for yourself. And well, that will take time, because the battle that we're fighting has to start from the society, has to start at home and then translate into the public sphere.
Right. Let me just focus on the elections, 2018 elections in Zimbabwe. We saw many candidates, female candidates running for MPs, for councillors, also some running for presidents. But we saw them being labeled and being given names. How do you relate to those things? Women pull each other down, and also men. They question women who want to run for political office. Are you married? Do you have this qualification? How would you relate to those things?
This is exactly what I'm saying about it starting from society. The attitude that society has of a woman is that she has to be at home in the kitchen and quiet. So when you get a woman who is able to assert herself, to say, no, I want to lead you men, I want to take you to the promised land, I'm able to do that, they feel uncomfortable, especially if they have a preferred candidate. They'll start to say, who do you think you are to want to wear the pants and run this country? So unless the men accept that it's possible for a woman to lead, we will still have women called those names. Unfortunately, because we've grown up in the media spaces, seeing men lead, young girls tend to think that an ideal leader is a man.
Yeah.
So when they see a woman want to assert herself, they think, who does she think she is?
Yeah.
Is she going to change the world? At home, they see their fathers lead, they see their fathers make decisions, even wrong decisions that take the family nowhere. But they think that's the ideal world. So we need to change that. And fortunately, unfortunately, it starts with us in the media.
Yeah.
Who are you, or who are we as Amakosi media portraying? Who are we giving the front lines? Who are we saying are the heroes and the leaders?
Yeah.
Whose stories are we telling? Whose sources, who are the sources of news? Who are the experts' opinions that we are portraying in our news sources? If it's just men, the young girl would think it always has to be a man, and when she tries to lead, they'll tell her that she's inadequate.
Right. So I was having an argument with this other person who we're busy advocating for the girl child empowerment. What about the boy child? Will the boy child be ready for the empowered girl child?
I don't think so. But also I don't think that people should think it in a minimalist way. You cannot say because we are empowering the girl child, the boy child is being disempowered. He is merely being left behind. And whoever is seeing that problem has to take up that challenge. The person who's empowering the girl child saw a problem and took up the challenge. That's where ideas come from. They come from problems. And ideas are problem solvers. The person who's seeing the young man being left behind has to take up the challenge. I, as a girl child activist, will not be able to be an activist for the young boy. I do not understand his context. It is not a passion to me because I haven't identified that problem. But I know a few people who have identified that problem, who possibly know the solution to that problem. They need to take that up. It doesn't mean that because I've started fighting for the girl child, the problem that the boy child sees stops existing. No, it means someone else has to take it up, and together we bring those children up to be equals to one another.
Right, so is gender equality achievable in Zimbabwe? Where are we in
equality at all? I don't know if equality is achievable at all, but I think we can try. Where are we? We're very far. When we have society that still, like you're saying, looks at women candidates who want to be leaders and calls them names and assumes that they got to the top through doing something sinister, it means we're very far, because the attitude is, why? What about her makes her unable to do what a man does? Is it because of her biological makeup? If it's because of that, actually, she should be able to do more, because she's able to bring men into this world. She is the producer of those men. So why limit her when she can do even more than what a man does from a biological standpoint?
So can you say in media, the playing field is not level as compared to female journalists and male journalists? The playing field is not level? No,
it's not level at all, because someone says he who owns the means of production owns the media.
Yeah.
And we know that the means of production belong to the men. The men have the financial power. Men have the contacts. Men own the publishing houses.
But how to challenge
men
that?
run the media houses. It's difficult to challenge it when we do not have the resources.
Yeah.
I'm going to quote the Bible. I hope it's not a problem. It says, money answereth all things.
Yeah.
And women have not had the power to hold the money and control it. But the funny thing is that many times women are the ones who produce the most money. They go to the fields, they go cross-border trading, they bring the money home, and they give it to the man. And the man is the one who says, okay, my laces, I seven so. So at the end of the day, even if she makes the money, she doesn't control how the money works. It's the same thing in the media. As much as the woman will go out and get the story, go out and get the sources, who does she give that story to?
To the man.
To the male editor. And who publishes that story? The male owner of the media house. If he feels this is a rubbish story, he won't publish it. If the editor feels and lay doesn't make sense, they won't publish it the way it should come out. So as long as women do not own the media houses, do not own the content, are not the sources of the news, are not the experts being consulted in the news, then we have a long way to go.
But let's focus on sanitary pads. Every girl misses school because of sanitary pads. Some in my career, they use they use tissues, paper during that period of month. How do you rate that the government hasn't done anything about sanitary pads? So the girl child misses school because of this problem. What do you think government should do about it, and how do you rate to that?
It's interesting. I read a tweet over the weekend, someone saying if men were the ones who were menstruated every month, the pads would be free by now. And I think it's true.
Yeah.
Whenever it affects a man, there's always a way to go around that. Our government, well, Professor Ncube removed duty on import tax on pads, and we expected that to translate to cheaper cost on sanitary pads, but unfortunately it hasn't.
Yeah.
Why? Because the people that sell the pads still want to make money.
Yeah.
And who are they? Who own the shops? Who are the importers? It's the men. They'll still hike the price. But why do we have to import sanitary pads anyway? I think the government can do more, but also some of these things we wait for government to do for us. If our business people, who unfortunately are men, understood that their children, their wives, their daughters, their sisters have this thing that happens to them every month, that is not a choice. And it's become such an expense that some girls have to sell their bodies to be able to afford a pack of sanitary pads. Then they would understand that this is no longer about just wanting to be a certain status, but it's about your dignity, it's about your livelihood. Because if you don't have those sanitary pads, you can't go to school. That means you can't reach a certain level in life to be able to support yourself. So it now has to be about all of society, not just government. Where are the men that have daughters, that have wives, who buy sanitary pads every day? Have you ever tried to calculate how much in a lifetime a woman spends on sanitary pads? And effectively how much as a man, if you are the one who's budgeting, you are giving away in terms of sanitary pads, on money for sanitary pads. And if you were to cut that cost and compare that maybe to the free condoms that are being distributed, I'm sure it would be an interesting answer if we were to calculate that.
Yeah, but if you focus on Makosikazi Media, earlier when I spoke about licensing of Makosikazi Media become a community station, where are we right now in terms of licensing Makosikazi FM? What are some of the challenges that you're facing?
We're actually very far. We are just an initiative right now, meaning we are an idea that has sort of like a concept and a direction of where we want to go. We want to be a radio station that focuses on women's issues, that gives them a voice, that produces women's content, plays women's music. Yeah. But because our government legal system does not recognize community radio stations, that means that is just what we are. We're just an idea, but hopefully through internet and podcasting, we'll be able to produce content that we can share. Unfortunately, our target audience, who need us the most, do not have access to internet. Yes, they do not have access to the gadgets that they'll be able to listen to us. And so we really need to think big. We need to think innovatively to find out how do we reach them while the government decides whether they're going to license us. But we're still very far. We're working with organizations as ZACRAS. We're a member of ZACRAS, and hopefully their advocacy will yield something and allow community radios to exist. Another thing is the general definition of what a community radio is. There was a time when it was said that a community is one that has a chief, a headman, and stuff like that. But I believe communities differ according to their interests, and we as women are a community. And that definition, if it stays, it would limit the extent to which we'll exist. So we hope that sanity will reign, and we'll be able to form something.
But some of the key programs that we've been doing as Makosikazi FM, like program lineup here, what do we do? What are some of the issues that we stick to advocate for and bring spotlight to?
Like I said, that in terms of advocacy, we partner with organizations that are more strengthened in that. So we've done trainings, like I said, on entrepreneurship. We've partnered with institutions that have done research on access to birth registration. We also work with gender organizations like the Southwestern Gender Region Network that works with different organizations on gender. So basically, we do not have a specific advocacy program, but we work with all institutions that seek to empower women, and ours is to offer them a platform to say, share with the public, with the women, what you do, so that they know that you exist. Because unless they know that you exist, then they will not seek your services. So basically, that's what we've been doing. We have an online platform called Amakhosikazi Media. It's a news platform where we write stories based on anything and everything that has to do with women's development. From the economy to politics to culture to entertainment and arts. We produce news and we just ensure that our women in our society get to know what's happening around them in terms of those things. But we also want to do, like, as we are speaking, it's International Women's Month. Yeah. We have International Women's Day coming up. We'll be partnering with organizations to screen a series of films and movies that tell the stories of women that came before us, that fought for our rights, the likes of Winnie Mandela, yeah. The likes of Rosa Parks, the likes of Otenjo Elisaba. Unfortunately, our own heroes in Zimbabwe, we don't have films on them. We have little written about them, but we've worked with the likes of Amagugu Heritage Trust, where Ubaba Patisa Nyati has come in to give lectures about Queen Lozike Dlodlo. Yes, that was an initiative we took part in. Basically, our end goal is to make sure that in the public sphere there is knowledge about these women, the work they have done, the contribution that they've made to the development of our country and our society. Because as long as we don't do that, our children will grow up thinking, they won't know that, no, it was actually Queen Lozike who ran those regiments and those armies for years, and they respected her, and she did it perfectly, and we can still do it today.
I remember this discussion and debate about Lozike on Twitter. It went all day. Right. So if you focus on what you were saying, what to tell stories are still out, no one is telling stories catching yourself. But what are the key issues which hinder the growth of media in Zimbabwe? And for us not to tell our own story as Zimbabweans, and for women not to tell their own story as Zimbabweans?
I think media is so skewed to the detriment of society, in the extent that we think that news is just politics. Yeah. So when our government limits the extent to which media grows, they feel that they are holding on to a certain aspect of power, where no one can question what they're doing, where no one can hold them to account. But media goes beyond just politics. There's also cultural and socio-economic issues that the media can advance. There are entertainment issues which speak to our economy, because I feel like there's so much talent in Zimbabwe that is not being shown. Look at how some people have gone viral by just doing silly things online in South Africa or in the United States. Talent is found online, and then it goes onto media platforms. In Zimbabwe, we have so many people now going online and showing their talent, but there is no mainstream media to then translate that to. And that limits the extent to which the media can work to grow our economy or even contribute to our growth as a country. So I feel like there's just so much that we're lagging behind in. And to think that Zimbabwe was even first to have a television station, radio station in Southern Africa, we still have one television station, one functioning one. And look at where South Africa is. It's sad. Yeah.
So in closing our interview, what is Amakhosikazi Media working on? 2018, Women's Month is coming, Women's Day is coming. What are we working on? What can we expect from Amakhosikazi Media?
So we have a series of screenings, like I said. We'll be showing movies and lectures. We're planning a Rosa Parks lecture with a youth organization. We're also planning a few movie screenings where we're going to invite especially young women students to come and watch and learn more about what women have contributed, and maybe discuss among themselves how they can get out of the cycle of thinking that they are not enough, that they cannot break barriers, that they cannot go beyond what they are told they are able to do. We're also hoping to just continue what we're doing, amplifying women's voices by telling their stories, but most importantly, highlighting the work of those that are doing the greater job, that are fighting for women's rights every day, 24/7. That's our main target, to say this is what they've been doing, this is what they're doing. Please come forward and support them. That's what we'll be doing.
So yesterday we saw a video trending on Twitter and social media about Babes Otuma and Mampinja. That's gender-based violence, domestic abuse. Like, how do you react to those things? Do girls know their rights when they enter those relationships? What's your advice to young girls about such things that happen in our society?
The sad thing is that when love takes over, logic goes out the window, and those rights. I mean, when you're falling in love with someone, you don't sit down and say, "Zwana lapama rights I'm in this relationship are A, B, C, D." You don't think of that. And unfortunately, many young women go into relationships without power.
Yeah.
Power in terms of knowing who they are and what they want. Power in terms of resources. In a relationship, the man is the one who will make that relationship nice. Pizza. She doesn't have the leverage to say, okay, pizza. So at the end of the day, ama rights abo do not count, because what she wants speaks more than what her rights are. If you look deeper into issue that babes you might find that it's a financial issue. That she probably thinks if fame will go out the window because my royalties, my talent, my music career is linked to this guy. If I get him arrested, even the hashtag mute it will affect her as well. And then what happens to her? It's sad that she fell in love with this guy. She probably hadn't explored her talents fully and understood what she was to be. So all she was told was, you're good for singing and dancing. And maybe that's not even her biggest talent. But that she's found fame through that is not bad. She may need to think outside of the box to say, how can I continue to survive without having to cling on to this man? And that's the problem with many women. Their financial priorities make them stay in abusive relationships because they think, where am I going to go? Abantwana bami bazadlani, ngizalala ngaphi? If our organizations and our government had systems where safe houses, skills building programs, where you are not thinking ukuthi ngizame emapholiseni, before amapholisa ezobopha umuntu lo, I still have to go into that house. Then they would leave abusive relationships. They'll take me to a safe house and I'll be there for a month, maybe trying to figure out what I'm going to do. But if she has to go back to that house and this man gets bail and goes back to the same house, what's going to happen? The next thing, she'll probably be dead. So we don't think things through. We just offer temporary solutions, but these things go deeper than what we see.
Right, so if you're to write a letter to the girl child who is in media right now, they're doing the studies in media, they're being abused at tertiary institutions, they're being abused at the workplace. If you're to write a letter, dear girl child in media, what would you say?
It would be a difficult letter because I'd ask her to speak out. But speaking out comes with consequences because often the victim is abused and never believed. But that's the only way that it will happen. She needs to speak out, she needs to be consistent. And I'd ask every girl child who's heard a story of an abused peer to not laugh at that story, but to support and to try and offer a helping hand. Because the only reason why someone will come out is when they know that they'll get support, they'll be listened to. There's no reason to come out if you think you're going to be ridiculed and put on social media, like the woman who alleged rape over the weekend, and then people started making fun of her looks. The issue was no longer about the ordeal she claims she went through. I'm not saying it was true, but our first question should have been, how did it happen? Why did it happen? Did it happen? Before you don't look good enough for it to happen
why
to you.
Why decide question rape? If rape is rape, why decide question it and say, did it happen?
I don't know why, but like I said before, I think it's just an attitude that we have. We are boxed to think that only an attractive woman will make a man react in a certain way. But I was telling someone online that, you know what, if you think that only attractive women are raped, then what do you say about men that abuse children, that have violated old people, disabled people, mentally challenged people, men that are caught doing things to animals? Does that make logic? Rape in itself is not a logical occurrence. It's someone who's, I believe, temporarily insane to think that they can force someone into an act like that. That is supposed to be pleasurable, but you make it a violation. So society, unfortunately, as Zimbabwe, we're a damaged society in that we're going through a lot of problems politically, economically, culturally, and that then translates to the way we react to issues. We want to burst out about something. So even if it's things that shouldn't be making us react, we end up reacting. Unfortunately, it's often negative.
Right, we'll say thank you for coming to the show. Keep on shining, keep on telling our story, keep on representing us, keep on motivating the young girls, and keep on telling your story.
Thank you so much.
Where can you find social media?
At Twittergazi and Amakosigazi Media FM, that's the organizational Twitter handle. I'm also Bosipebe on Facebook.
Right, this has been Know Your Right, and my name is Brighton, the B Factor. Do follow me on Twitter at the real B Factor. Do follow me on Twitter at Twittergazi, and do follow Amakosigazi Media on Twitter at Amakosigazi Media. Till next time, this is Know Your Right, was Amalungenwako. #Asaki.